Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. If you're like most Americans, you spend a significant amount of your time working. In fact, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work in America? On this podcast, the Work for Change team will. Work for Change, LLC is a team of social scientists, thought leaders, and digital storytellers who dig into the critical issues affecting American workers and workplaces today. Our podcast is co-hosted by Dr. Kendra Jason and myself, Dr. Kris Maycumber. We'll also bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. We are so excited for you to join us as we lead the efforts to humanize the workplace by building dignity and equity into jobs, work, and organizations. Please subscribe to the podcast and share us with your friends and family. You can learn more about Work for Change at workforchangellc.com. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jobs and Work podcast. This is where we talk about all things related to jobs and work. This is episode number 22. And the theme today is in the news. And I am your co-host, Kris Maycumber.
And I'm co-host Kendra Jason. And today we're going to talk about a trending topic called the Great Resignation. And so just a few weeks ago, Anthony Klotz out of Texas A&M University coined this term called the Great Resignation. And what he's referring to is the idea or the prediction that about 40%, anywhere between 25 and 40% of the current workforce is going to resign from their current jobs during the summer or after the summer is over. So this is very different messaging than we had before because this is predictive, right? Mm-hmm. And this is also not workers in response to what management says and does, such as workers are like, how long can I work from home? When can we return to work? Will my hours get cut? You know, all of these questions are directed at management as far as what can workers do. Well, the tides have kind of changed because the Great Resignation, the power is in the hands of those workers and employees. And they're basically saying, you know, in COVID over the past year since 2020, I've had to sit at home, or if I had to, you know, rearrange how I do work and life, and I'm really considering how I want to do things different. Another thing, of course, is that people aren't likely to move when things are unsure and precarious. And so COVID was very much a time of uncertainty. So people are basically sitting on their jobs for security. However, as the vaccination becomes available, as restrictions loosen up, and people have had this year at home or, you know, changing their work arrangements, they're really considering, do I want to stay at my job? And about 40%, 25 to 40% are saying, I think I want to change. Mm-hmm. What do you want to say, Kris?
Kendra, I love the whole idea of what you said about a shift, right? Where workers are now saying, wait a minute, we're going to have leverage and call shots, and we're not going to stay in a job that's unhappy. And like you said too about COVID, people were just holding on to what they had, like anchoring down, rooting down. Job security was like to have a job. So many people lost their jobs. And if you had one, you weren't going to, you know, take that lightly. But now the tides have changed a little bit, and, you know, change creates more change. And I think people had that opportunity to reflect and to assess. And there's so much emphasis on work right now. Of course, for us, there always is. We're always like thinking about, you know, life through the lens of work, but you really can't escape it. And it's just a really great time to assess and think about what's next, what might be different. And what we do know too is, you know, more than 60% of people pre-COVID were not happy in their jobs. That's like a significant chunk of the workforce wasn't happy pre-COVID. So I think, you know, having that long pause gave people a lot of chance to kind of reconsider. It's exciting.
Yeah, I love this topic so much because it really, you know, there's so many dynamics to the conversation, because what I'm thinking, just like you just said, like, even before COVID, people were saying they wanted to leave their jobs. I mean, people being not totally happy in their jobs is a normative state of being, right? For our workforce. COVID changed the conversation. Work and work arrangements and management and screaming moms and all of these things are in the news on a daily basis. So people are thinking about work, and what should I do? The question is, will they actually do it?
Mhm.
Right. And so, one thing that I was thinking about with this question, like as social scientists, right? Kris and I are social scientists. You all know that. So we study work, we study patterns of behavior. But one of the things that we really try to capture is the difference between what people think and say and what they actually do. So there is a lot of conversation about people want to leave their jobs, people want to change careers, people want to start their own jobs. And of course, we encourage that highly at Work for Change, based on, if you're not completely satisfied with your work. But the reason why this is a prediction and not, totally based in reality, because there are also a lot of articles trending in the news really saying, is this great resignation exaggerated? Is it true? Will it really happen? And that's great intellectual fodder. So it'd be really interesting to see how many people actually make that leap and transition. Because, Kris, one thing I've of course thought about is that at Work for Change, we offer a workshop called Starting Your Own Business. And I have some people come to me on a regular basis and say, oh, I want to start my business. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I have this idea. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we got this plan for you. We have this workshop. And they say this every month and they don't show up, right? It's almost like the Chicken Little, they don't act on these desires, and people have different reasons. And so it just made me think about that. It is the perfect storm for people to consider to leave their jobs. But the question is, once the fall hits or, maybe in early spring, will this actually happen?
Yeah. Well, I know there has been some major sectors that are seeing, people leaving. Like, for example, I'm taking a flight on American Airlines. They had to cancel many of their flights because they don't have crew. They don't have pilots, and they don't have flight attendants to work on the plane. So they had to cancel flights. So that is unprecedented. Even though travel is high right now, the airlines are losing employees. So people are, even though we would need some more long-term data, there is some, there are trends happening right now with travel that I think are just really, like you said, as social scientists, we are on high alert right now, watching this unfold, taking scrupulous notes, going, wow, like airlines are canceling flights even after COVID, even though travelers want to travel because they don't have crew to work those flights. So I think I don't think it's an overstatement of saying, that people are going to resign. I think it's happening now as we speak.
Yeah, so there are a couple things going on with that. So flight attendants, I'm not sure if flight attendants are considered essential workers. I would think that they are. I'm not 100% sure, but we do know that low wage essential workers, the restaurant industry is really hit hard right now by being understaffed. Places are closing, hours are being cut because they don't have staffing. And so there's a couple of things. So what it sounds like with the airline industry is that this is like a bottom up, if you will, trend where people are resigning because of different, not enough hours or, need childcare or whatever the case may be. So what this also does, however, it also opens up job opportunities. So those positions are open now. Now we do know right now that those positions are not being grabbed up by many people, if any people, because the wages are too low and the jobs are bad, right? And so out of COVID, what is, some really clear messaging is that, people are not going to work poor paying jobs where they're not treated well. There are other options. If that other option is unemployment, if that other option is switching jobs, if that other option is starting your own business or whatever other arrangement that they work out, it does actually mean that jobs are available, but it's up to management and corporations to create better working conditions, including better pay, right? Including flexible arrangements so that people will want to take the jobs that are available.
Right. Well, it sounds like people are either working for change or not working for change, right? Trying to create that change by saying, no, I'm going to opt out and do something else.
Yeah.
So this, I think, leads us to this question about like, if you're thinking about resigning and changing, what do you do to get yourself ready? Because taking that leap can be scary, right? Saying, I'm going to leave this industry and do something else. And part of what we do as consultants too is guide people through that process. And one of the, I think, biggest barriers is people think I've only worked in retail, right? I've only done this one industry. So what I try to explain to people is just write down skills. Like, what are your skills that you have that are not industry specific? Maybe it's good communication skills. Maybe it's really good project management skills. Maybe you have really good writing skills. Maybe you're really good in leadership or as a supervisor. And how do those then translate into other contexts? And sometimes it takes a conversation with other people, right? And saying like, you would be really good at this, you'd be really good at that, and really thinking broad about a skill set and not an industry. There's this great quote I came across, and someone put on LinkedIn about never get tied to one job, get tied to the work you like to do. Like, don't, and it, I'm not really saying it verbatim, but it was a really powerful quote. And like, you find work that's meaningful, that you're good at, that really maximizes what you like to do every day. And when you're good at something, you will find the right work for you. You just have to sometimes think creatively and think broadly about what that might be. Because I've got, colleagues and friends who are like, want to get out of a certain industry, but they feel like their resume only shows that. So they don't feel like they have experience to jump into something else. And I think that might be why people are hesitant to leave, because that could be scary too, to, change job sectors.
Yeah. And so what I would like to tag on to that conversation is what managers can do to keep and retain the workers that they have, right? It's not also necessarily that a lot of people are in jobs, a lot of people are doing work that they really like. However, their workplace or the management arrangements are not such that they feel valued, that they feel like they want to stay there for the long haul, or they can get something better somewhere else. And so you have actually a lot of really good, valuable workers. And so when you think about, we just had Sarah Morgan on our show last week, and she is, a phenomenal,
amazing
person. Please go back,
watch
to the
it.
last episode.
I want to watch it again.
What she said about COVID and what she learned about COVID and how it is helping us predict what's going to happen today. She told us about the pandemic of 1918 and how that can help us understand COVID and how work arrangements can work today. So human resources, as she mentioned, some people are losing sleep about losing their great talent that they have at work, and how can management and human resources respond? So one thing to understand, and I think everyone knows this, is that the solutions are not going to be universal. So there are studies out right now that said about 53% of people who can work from home would like to work from home. That's great. But you know what that means? Almost 47% of people want to return to work, right? And so if we focus on just one or the other, then that universal solution of everybody work from home or everyone come in is not going to meet the needs of your workers. So you do have to understand the needs of your workers, and then understand that those needs are going to be different, offering flexible work arrangements, whatever that means for your company. Another thing that you can do, and this is something that Work for Change that we as consultants can really, really help you with, is align your organizational values with your company practices.
Yes.
You cannot say that you value workers or you value the community or, any of these great equitable statements if your workers do not feel that in return. And so it just may be a gap that you're so focused on the bottom line and the profits and the numbers that you don't have the time or the wherewithal to understand, how do I get these organizational principles aligned so that the workplace culture here is what we want it to represent. And then, one last suggestion is, so there's a term as well that has come out of this conversation about COVID-19 and how workers are responding to it, and it's called a boomerang employee. And so basically what that means is that some of these people who are leaving the workplace, leaving your job now because of COVID, and they want to try something new, or they want to switch jobs, are going to find out that they actually liked it better at home base, right? But basically in their first employment. So those people are going to come back. We can't predict how many, we can't predict, what type of influence that will have, but this is both to a message to human resources and to management, as well as to the workers that Kris was talking to. Don't burn bridges. If your employees decide to leave, treat them nicely, treat them kindly, and if you as a worker decide that you want to leave, just always try to leave a positive image of yourself. So if you need to either come back or get a recommendation, or, if you want to build a consulting relationship or some other type of relationship with your former employee, that is still available for you.
Right. And, this conversation makes me really excited about, I feel like we're in this sea change moment where we're assessing like how we work matters, why we work matters, how we organize the workplace matters. And I feel like, I'm hoping that there's an increased responsibility that employers and that management feels to take those questions and that sort of sentiment and to build it into, like you said, Kendra, the culture at work matters, and people are like no longer willing to tolerate it. Right. And that's why working from home does come with some appeal for those who have that option, is like you have autonomy, you're in control of your space. And then to go back into the workplace where you might lose that after having it for an extended period of time. So I'm really optimistic. I wouldn't say I'm idealistic, but optimistic about the changes. And like Sarah said last week, if history has taught us anything, these major economic, social, cultural, medical shifts they can't not create major changes for how we work. They will create, and they are. And it'll just be exciting to kind of see how it all takes shape. I think it's a really exciting time to be a social scientist. It's a really exciting time to be a workplace consultant. So I'm here for it. It's fun.
Yeah, like we are here for it. And so, speaking to, if you are someone who is considering or, just trying to figure out, do you want to stay with your current job? Please reach out to Work for Change, have a consultation with you and help you figure out these transferable skills. If you're wondering if you are prepared or ready to start your own business, no matter how big or how small, starting your own business does not mean you have to leave your full-time job, right? And so please, we have a Starting Your Own Business workshop. The next one will be available on July the 17th. So please, look out for that. If you're on the management or the human resources or the employer end, please reach out to Work for Change, because we can really help you think about these things deeply. We can work shoulder to shoulder with you so you can develop an action plan so that you can understand first and then be able to communicate and retain your workers so that all of you will have a great workplace experience. And so we're available for you for all of that and more. So check us out. We are at work4changellc.com. You can find us on YouTube, of course, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So please like, subscribe, and share so we can work to make the world of work better.